Hey yo, what is up, my good peoples? It's your boy, Big Chris, aka the Compton Animator, and I am here once again to give you another dumb as hell video. Now, on today's video, we're going to be talking about Marvel's The Eternals. Now, The Eternals is a 2021 movie that came out, I think, last weekend or just this previous weekend, and I finally got a chance to see it on Monday, and here I am getting my review finally out. It took me a minute to get some free time to do this review, man. But yeah, this is The Eternals. Now, a quick synopsis from IMDb says, the saga of the Eternals, a race of immortal beings who lived on Earth and shaped its history and civilizations. So, not a lot there from the IMDb synopsis, but I'm going to tell you how we're going to start this off. And first thing I'm going to do is start off with how I separate my reviews. They're into four pieces. I start off with my overall expectations going in, then we go into my positives, my mixed feelings, and I end it all in a review score. So, to start off with my expectations going in, this movie was very interesting to me because this was kind of the first Marvel movie where I knew absolutely nothing going in. There was movies like Shang-Chi or Guardians of the Galaxy where I kind of knew bare minimum going in. Like with Shang-Chi, I knew about all the Mandarin stuff because he's an Iron Man villain, and Iron Man's my favorite comic book character. So I knew about that, and I knew a little bit about Shang-Chi. With the Guardians of the Galaxy, I at least knew who Star Lord and Rocket Raccoon was. Rocket Raccoon from the video games, and Star Lord from, I think he appeared in one comic book that I used to have. So I knew a little bit about him. But with the Eternals, I know absolutely nothing. The most I know is from I forget what the dude's name. I think he's the comic book guy on YouTube or something, but he did this whole YouTube video where he went through all of Marvel's history as far as the actual Marvel universe and not the studio or the studio brand comics or whatever. But I'm talking about like the story of the Marvel universe from like the beginning of where everything started to all the way to a certain point. And he talked about like how the Celestials started everything, and with the Eternals going around and the Watchers and stuff like that. He gave basically a history of the like timeline of the Marvel universe, and that was pretty dope. But that's pretty much all I knew going into this movie. My second expectation going in is I wanted to really know how was this going to connect to the Marvel universe. What were they going to be the things that they were going to do? How was they going to change the Eternals from the comic books? I might go back and read the comics to see more of that. But overall, like, how do you connect this to Thor? How do you connect this to the Watcher? How do you connect this to the Celestials and stuff that we've already seen? Does the Guardians of the Galaxy have something in this? Will we see people from that storyline, and how do they connect all those things? That was a little bit of something interesting. I really wanted to like see if they were going to give us a feel of that in this movie. And lastly, this movie, the only thing I saw about this movie before I watched it was, I think, one or two trailers I did watch, which I wasn't really in love with. But the thing that was the most interesting was the IMDb score. This movie was the first Marvel MCU movie that has gotten a rotten score. Even Thor: The Dark World, which is my least favorite of the Marvel movies, doesn't have a rotten score. This is the first one. So I was very interested to see how would that score relate to what I saw in the actual movie. Now, I didn't read any reviews before I watched this movie, but I was interested. Okay, was that score going to affect anything? Were the critics right to kind of aggregate all of that into this score? Or was this is something where the critics are kind of off here and I see something different? But to start this off, we could talk about the positives. So for me, the one thing that I enjoyed a lot about this movie was the overall characters. The characters here I really enjoyed, just the representation that they had, how there were a lot of different people from different backgrounds. I believe this is the first what do you call them? What do they call it? The first sign language mute character here. There's also the first full-on gay character in Marvel. They even had the first gay kiss in this movie, which I thought was very interesting. But I really like the ensemble cast they had here. A lot of the actors did a good job here. I thought that they were very funny at points. They were really interesting in how their dynamics with each other were. I really enjoyed that aspect of a lot of these things. There was this one character here in Conra, I think how you say his name, but I really enjoyed him. He was kind of, what is this dude's name? Let me see the actor's name. Kumaj Nihanji, or however you say his name, he was basically his sidekick. And I enjoyed the role, that the dynamic between them two, where he was videotaping everything that he was doing, and how Kanamajami, I'm butchering that dude's name. What is his name in the movie? Because I am butchering his name. Kingo. I'm gonna call him Kingo. I think Kingo. So how Kingo and him, how they connected with each other and different things that they were doing, and I enjoyed all that. I enjoyed the backstory of the characters and where they were throughout the time that they were on Earth. I really enjoyed all of that stuff. Um, Another thing I really enjoyed about this was, like I said, the reputations. The first gay character, they let a gay kiss happen. This was the first movie, I didn't realize this, the first Marvel movie with an actual love scene, is a kind of sex scene in this. It wasn't much, but that was interesting to see. I enjoyed the history that was being told here, and how they were going through all the stuff with the Celestials, and the Eternals, and the start of the universe and stuff like that. They kind of really did pitch in and dove a little bit deep on that. I really enjoyed that type of stuff in this movie. And you know, I'm a nerd for Marvel stuff and just for comic book things in general. So getting to see that actually put together in the movie was really interesting. The main idea here was also pretty dope, of seeing Eternals come here and how they have to shape this universe and have to work with humans to kind of do what they need to do, but they can't interfere too much because they don't want to kind of, you know, push humans to a certain way. They want to let them live and let them grow on their own, but kind of give a little bit of influence here and there. That was a really dope part of the storyline. I like how they showed, you know, different things flew out, different things kind of move throughout time with the Eternals, and you see their influence right here. Like Angelina Jolie's character name is Thena, and you can see that she's Athena from the Greek mythology. You have this dude at the top whose name is Icarus, and you kind of see like there are different places where the characters kind of meld and figure things out and stuff like that. And you know, oh, this would be that character in history, just kind of like how Thor is, you know, is the Marvel Comics Thor, but he's also would be the Norse god Thor that people would already know about. And that was kind of a dope thing too, because you had certain characters when things happened, like the Hiroshima bomb dropped. It kind of pushed it that, oh, this character had a little bit of influence in that, and you know, maybe, and he kind of was just pissed off and sad that uh the way things went with that, and how he just may have really messed things up by being too much influential on the human population, and it kind of drove him in his story down a different way. I really enjoyed that. I also enjoyed the action scenes here. I really liked all the powers with the characters and stuff. I liked a lot of the things that they were doing here. I liked how the visuals were with that stuff, and there was like the end action scene was really really good. I like how they set it up. I like how there was just one character who just had a really good way of just fighting off everybody else, and you could tell that he's supposed to be the most dominant one and everything. I like how they had this other set with the what do they call it, the deviants, and their little fight scenes with them. They had one at the beginning that I thought was pretty entertaining, and one in the forest that was pretty good. They weren't like great fight scenes or like ultra crazy memorable, but they were pretty good for this movie, and I enjoyed them for the most part. And like I said, overall, like the designs over here. I think that the costumes for the most part were pretty dope. They kind of look like a little bit of Egyptian mixed with Greek, mixed with just different things, and a little bit of alien, but it's also superhero-ish as well and everything. And I enjoyed that. And also something I'm gonna talk about, I'm gonna do a little spoiler at the end, but I like the end credit scenes and where it seems that this story is leading to. But with that being said, that's kind of it where I end on my positives, because with this movie, I have a lot of mixed feelings here, and some of them are pretty negative for me. First, this movie is 2.5 hours long, and they really tried to fit so much in this story, tried to do so many things here that it just ended up being convoluted at the end of the day. There's a story about the Eternals themselves and what they're doing with the planet. Then there's the story about where the Eternals come from. Then there's the story of what's going on with the planet itself, and the story of the Eternals going away and coming back and meeting each other, their conflicts with each other, their conflicts within what they're supposed to do. Like, there's just so much going on here. And then you got to add it all into what this means for the MCU overall. And they're trying to tell all of that in this one movie. Plus, they got the deviants here, who are these characters that have kind of a connection with the Eternals, and they got to tell a little bit of them and where they come from as well. And there's just so much compact in here, and so much that they need to do, and so much that they need to tell, that the movie starts to become a little bit more of exposition at points, and not really just what it needed to be, and just, okay, let's tell this story, give these characters time to kind of connect, which some do. I like the connection between Angelina Jolie and this dude right here, which his name in the movie was Gilgamesh. Don Lee is character's Gilgamesh. I like their connection together. I like how they had this kind of love interest thing, but they were more like friends in a certain way. Actually, she was kind of like the Hulk in Age of Ultron a little bit in a certain way. If you see the movie, you'll get the reference. But there were some interesting things between them, and I like that stuff, but they didn't give too much of that. There were a couple love story issues here and everything else, but not a really lot, and it just left the story feeling convoluted, and just like there was just too much, too way too much to try to tell, and just not enough time to tell it. Also, there's a real lack of villains in this movie. They try to make some antagonist things and try to make some of the characters antagonistic and stuff like that, but none of it really lands. None of them really feel like they're pushed that way, or there's enough in their character and in what they're trying to do and in their motivation to really work for that. The deviants kind of work as the villains for one point, but they're not really the main villains of the movie. They're thought to be, but there's a bigger story that's going on with them and everything else. I'm kind of happy they weren't, but it seems like okay, the bigger story here needs to be fleshed out more, and especially the deviants themselves, they need to be fleshed out a lot more. There's not a lot with them going on. They're just kind of mindless creatures for the most part, and one of them gains a little bit more intelligence, but for the most part, everybody, all the deviants are just mindless, and they don't really do too much with them. And also, speaking of that, a lot of the characters needed more fleshed out arcs. They kind of have some here, like the main character who is, what's her name? Cersei at the top right here. She kind of has an arc here where she's trying to become in more of a leadership role of the team, and trying to figure herself out and her powers out and stuff like that. But it doesn't really do anything for me, not story wise, but character wise. It doesn't make me like her more, dislike her more. It just all pertains to, okay, I need to do this, how can we do it? Next step, next step, next step. Let's do it. And it doesn't really do anything more than that for me. I was looking for just a lot more from these characters, because this is a big ensemble cast, and you would want everybody to kind of stand out in some ways here. I thought there was a character here in Sprite, who is the little lady right here, who she had a nice little character arc here. It wasn't very big, but there were some things with her story and with her character and kind of motivations that I really enjoyed. Like the fact that she was a little girl who lived as long as the other Eternals, but she never looked older. All of them look like they're in their 30s and up, and she still looks like a kid. And it was very interesting to see how they told her story and how they delved with her. But she was really the only one who kind of had that here. The black dude here who's from Atlanta, Paperboy, I'm gonna call him because I'm not be able to say his name, but he kind of had a story here about him being gay in a certain sense of the words, and then diving a little deep into that, but also how his technology was a thing that was causing a lot of destruction, and he wanted to pull back from that. They did it some here, but they didn't really flesh into it, and I wanted a lot more out of that. Another thing that I was thinking, like, yo, the visuals in this movie could have been a lot crazier. They were good, they were fine, and they did what they were supposed to do. But if you go back to the comics, I'm gonna show you a couple images here. If you go back to the comics and you see how crazy these visuals are, especially some of the early stuff where you see that Jack Kirby's designs are just really bright and crazy and just really out there and stuff like that. I really wanted to see them push more into that and see them get a lot crazier and a lot more wilder, and find ways to make things that's happening in the story a lot more visually just insane, and just go further with what they did. And it felt like it was a little bit held back and it felt like it was a little bit tame. I would love to see some of the stuff that they did in Guardians of the Galaxy with this, or that they did in Doctor Strange with this, where they really pushed the visuals and really pushed things that were going on here. I would also say that speaking of those other movies, there was a lack of MCU connection. I was really interested to see, okay, how are these connected to characters like Thor, which they kind of talked about here, like for like a sentence, but they didn't really show any other characters. Some big stuff happened in this movie to where that like it's some planetary universal things that could shape and change everything on the planet, but nobody else knows about it. Nobody else figures it out, and it kind of story ends and they go along about their way. And that kind of felt weird to me. Also, I felt that the comedy in this movie was very hit and miss. Like I said, the Middle Eastern dude or Indian, I forget what they are. But this guy right here, I think he was the funniest person in here and had the most jokes that hit, but there was some other stuff that just didn't hit, like the dude from what do you call this show? Atlanta. Let me see if I can find a picture of him to talk about. Ah, here he is. The dude from Atlanta, he at moments was really goofy and kind of coonish at times, to where he was like bug-eyed coonish when something crazy would happen, and I didn't really enjoy that part of his character. But when he was more subtle and more straight to the point with his story, and especially with the whole thing surrounding his love interest and his family and how he was building his character, those were the interesting parts, but everything else just really didn't hit for me. um and lastly, this is something I really wanted to talk about. Couple of the characters felt underused here, especially people like Selma Hayek, who I want to see if I can find a picture of her real quickly. Selma Hayek, who just felt like she was there for most a good part of the movie at the beginning and some of the back scenes, but they didn't really do anything with her. It just felt like, yo, you could have. Oh, here she is. It just felt like, yo, you could have used her a lot more. She's a big actress and stuff like that. If you wanted to do things like flashbacks or just have her play out throughout the movie, you could have done a lot more with her. And it just doesn't feel like they did enough things with her. I would say that Angelina Jolie is the same way. She's there for the most of the movie, but it doesn't feel like they're doing much with her at all. Kit Harington, wait, is that his name? Let's see if that was his name. Yeah, Kit Harington, Jon Snow. Yeah, Jon Snow. It didn't feel like they did nothing with him. Like, forget Phil, they did absolutely dick with him. I was trying to find a picture, but never mind. They did absolutely dick with him. He was in the first 10 minutes of the movie, and you saw him sprinkled in throughout a little bit everything else, but they did nothing with him. And it just kind of felt like, yo, why are we here? Why are they even having this love interest here? And like, what are we doing with that? And I would have really liked to see them like really flesh these characters out more, because these are known actors. Give them something more to do and let them really have fun with these characters and play out these stories and stuff. And I just didn't feel that. And to me, that's kind of the whole theme of this movie, where it's just not enough, and at points it's too much. And it's a movie that I felt that could have been bogged down, not bogged down, but tied down a lot more. You could have cut off half of the story and told a story about the Eternals and the Deviants, and kind of fleshed those two characters out, and really got a main villain out of the Deviants that could have really like played with the ideas of who the Eternals were and more of the story of the Eternals, and then not really go on to where the movie finally ended at. You could have separated that part into a whole nother movie and really just fleshed out that small point and let that be the story. But that's not really what they did here, and it just felt like it was way too much. For me, this movie isn't bad, nor is it great. It's kind of in the middle. It's a little average, but kind of below average for me. Like it's just fine. It's nothing like I can see myself, yo, I really want to go back to it. Kind of like it's kind of like Thor: The Dark World or The Incredible Hulk, to where I'll watch it if I'm having a Marvel marathon, but it's nothing that I'm gonna remember like crazy enough from here. It felt like it could have been a better movie, and it could have done a lot more stuff. This is actually one that I think probably should have been a TV show. They probably should have done that. And as far as my star rating goes, I give it 2.75 stars. I was close to a 3 stars, but it felt like they didn't do enough here to for me to fully give it that 3 stars. But I was super close to it. But yeah, that is my review for the Eternals movie. And I say go see it. Come up with your own things. Don't fully trust the critic reviews, and don't even trust my review. Go make your own opinion on this one. Now, spoiler warning. I wanted to end my review on what those end credit scenes were. And I want to start with this first. So the final battle ends with one of the Celestials who's supposed to be born through the planet Earth being stuck in Earth. And that's the last image of him you see. And then you also see that one of the Celestials, the main Celestial, comes back to Earth to pick up the Eternals and give them judgment. Do I have a picture of that? Yes, it was something that looked like that, where he just showed up on Earth or some shit and gave them their final judgment. I thought I had a better picture of that. But yeah, so that was a cool visual and everything, but it made me wonder, no other Avengers see that shit? That's the type of thing I was talking about. Just a little bit too much. But also, so the end credit scenes, you have one where let's see right here, where a group of the Avengers have left to figure something out. I don't forgot what they were fully doing, but they left to figure something out, and they get met on their ship by some other Eternals who they've never met, which is this little guy. I have no idea his name is, but this guy who claims to be the brother of Thanos, who I think is the actor Harry Styles. I'm interested to see where that goes, because I knew before I watched this movie that Thanos was a deviant or an Eternal, something like that, or was like part deviant, part eternal, something like that. And I was interested to see, okay, were they going to tap into that and tell that story, which it looks like in the next movie or going forward, they are. So that's going to be interesting. And the second thing, which was the bigger thing for me in this movie, was let's see if I can find a good image of that. I have that somewhere. Here it is. Kit Harington ends up being this character called the Black Knight. I knew that he was going to be that because the casting told you that, but I wanted to see if they were going to actually show that in this movie, and they actually show him finding that little sword that you see with him holding right there, but they also add something different, and you hear the voice of a character talk to him after he opens the box to get his sword, and it ends up being Blade. I thought it was the voice of Blade when I heard it, because my cousin I was sitting with kind of like, is that Blade's voice? And yeah, it was Blade's voice. Then the director herself, she confirmed that's Blade. So that was very interesting. And I'm very curious to see if Kit Harington is going to be in the Blade movie and they're going to push that off from there, or is this going to be something different and Blade is going to do its own thing, and they're just kind of finding a way to just, okay, we got to find a way to introduce Blade into the story, and this is the best way we can do it. So yeah, I like the end credit scenes. If you're not a huge Marvel fan, you wouldn't know nothing about this. That was kind of a problem with this movie, that you needed to be a big Marvel fan at points to really understand characters and stuff like that. But yeah, I enjoyed the end credit scenes, and I enjoyed them for what they were. One more thing with the movie itself, there was the deviants themselves had a main villain in the deviants themselves who stole power from the other Eternals and made himself smarter and more powerful. I think he would have been an interesting villain on his own if they built his character up right, and if he was influencing the Eternals, instead of the Eternals just saying, "Oh, we want to do this thing," which we knew nothing about in the first place, but we want to do this thing to kind of fulfill our agreement or fulfill our destiny or whatever it was. But if he was the thing that was doing that, if he was kind of fucking with the Eternals and he was doing his deviant thing, or if they just fleshed out the deviants themselves in the comic books, which I do know this, they actually have characters. They're not just mindless monsters. So yeah, I would have loved to have seen them do more with that. And yeah, it just, I don't know, man. I don't know. So yeah, that was I'm dragging on with this, but yeah, that's my Eternals review. Thank you for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. Tell me what you thought about this movie. Or if you haven't watched it and you've gotten to this point of spoilers or anything, are you going to watch this movie? Like I said, like, comment, subscribe, share my video, and I'm gonna have more stuff coming up soon for you. Almost lost point there. But yeah, thank you for watching the video. I'm out of this bitch. Word up. Peace.